I'm here with Greg Orel of the Polmatch project, and he reached out to me a little while ago to tell me about his website and what he has in mind in terms of solutions to the problems that we face. So, Greg and I were just talking about problems and solutions, and as most of you guys know, I have recommended for a long time that given the social problems that we see, especially in Western nations, are the problems with suicide, depression, just kind of vice in general, um, birth rates, demographic issues, like all sorts of problems that we're facing would be solved through physical communities, getting back to living in community. That's the way that our ancestors lived for countless generations. Living as individuals is not really helping us. That's my perspective. And I think forming real communities is the way forward. But on top of that, you also need to fix really fundamental philosophical issues that have kind of broken our common ideological slash like mythological language, especially in Western societies, but increasingly around the world. So putting those together, I've always advocated physical communities with an educational focus in order to grow that really integrated foundational philosophy to move forward from. Those are the two indispensable conditions of any solution moving forward, in my opinion. You need physical communities and you need a way of building that integral philosophy. So I have my idea of peer academy. That's my kind of solution and way forward. But, Greg has been working out these problems on his own and thinking of his own solutions to them. So, I think we can all agree vaguely on the types of problems that we're facing. So, how do you respond to those problems? What do you see as the kind of indispensable conditions of possible solutions to them?
I agree with you, Eric. I just always was thinking of the bigger picture. So yes, real world communities, that would be a perfect scenario if we could find quality like-minded people and people with proper skills, possibilities, who will be forming those real world communities in their own countries, in their own area. Just in my view, we need a global network of with the coordinated cooperation, especially in the economic field between such communities. And well, Eric, so far, as I was observing the situation for the last 10 years, I haven't seen any significant progress in that area. I heard about one big project from a few years back, which kind of inspired me to design certain projects in my work. It was called Project Oriana, and it was a Christian community initiative in the United States. Have you heard about that?
No, I haven't.
This is how it went for them. They made an announcement among the Christian groups, like-minded Christian groups, that they moving to one area, they got a land over there, they invited people, and when those people started coming in, majority of them started applying for some social support from the community hosts. So yes, the idea was we got the assets, we got the land, we're gonna invite people, but when they made this appeal public to invite people in, the people who came in wanted to live over there and benefit from the community functionality for free. So with my work, I was trying to counter this type of mistakes, which other community makers in the future might be able to repeat.
Yeah, I will say that there are successful Christian communities. I mean, if you're a Christian identitarian and you want to live
I know some
among
of them.
fellow
I know they are.
Christians, there are plenty of communities that you could join and live in the United States that have solved that problem. But it is funny, that's kind of the original problem that the early Christian communities had, was people were freeloading. I mean, Paul kind of complains about that in some of the letters. So yeah, that is a problem. I look at kind of Pythagoreanism as the original alternative community network of parallel communities project. And I think Pythagoreans did not have that problem. Although they held property in common and all of that, they were a strict academic organization, and that educational focus, I think, gave them the opportunity to instill good work habits, ethics, and all of that in a way that, even though Christianity is also supposed to instill morals, it didn't have like the pedagogy down and how you actually teach this. Maybe it was too much superstition about the Holy Spirit just handling it. But Pythagoreans actually did have successful communities that were economically viable, because I think they had that academic focus and they had ways of training people to become productive members of the community. So I think that's a lesson to learn from. But in any case, how would you work around that problem of economic incentives? How do you get economic cooperation without free riding?
Well, we are able to create a sort of a database of a people where they will be able to qualify in advance before you even consider them someone worthy of recruiting, if I can call it this way. So this can be solved very quick, where you can find, thanks to technology, like-minded people and form those communities with the people which you are looking for precisely. Does that make sense?
With our technology, we can find like-minded people potentially easier. I would agree with that. That we can kind of vet and qualify people for cooperation easily, I would disagree with, because it's easy to hide details about yourself and misrepresent yourself online. But yeah, I think that is true. We have an advantage in potentially finding community compared to previous times.
So what do we think, Eric? What is the problem? Why there are so few functional communities created so far?
I think it's a moral problem. I think people don't have firm moral foundations. Even if you are a Christian and you have a Christian moral foundation, many people have a lot of cognitive dissonance around the issue of Christianity because it doesn't align with the rest of their worldview, which is kind of just the mainstream scientific worldview. And so the fact that I think they aren't integrated in their thinking makes it impossible for them to morally discipline themselves and live in accordance with their avowed values, because they don't even wholeheartedly believe in their theology. That's my opinion. I think most Christians, especially in right-wing circles, in these right-wing circles, I should say, aren't 100% true believers. If they were 100% true believers, then, like Jesus said, if you love me, follow my commandments, they would be acting more like true Christians, forming real community. And I think that does happen a lot in local areas. If people are not concerned with ideological purity and like some big academic novel project like the Pythagorean communities, if they're just looking to like live around people who share their values, like I said, there are tons of Christian communities where you can just kind of move in and go to church and have a normal life. And if that's all you're looking for, then that's the direction they go. So a lot of well-adjusted people with Christian morality feel like they can satisfy their needs. Now, if you're some right-wing ideologue with views like at a large scale, concerned about things that are not being addressed, and you want to proactively create communities, it's those people, I think, that are not primarily motivated by a Christian ethic that have that cognitive dissonance, and they aren't able to regulate their own moral conduct. They aren't able to like escape their own vice. And that's why those people in particular, like dissident right-wing types online, those people aren't doing what they would have to do to build power, because they don't have an ethical system that they truly believe in. Many of them are actually nihilists. Many of them go on an instinctual kind of ethics that is not comprehensive. And then when you have an instinctual moral system, you kind of rationalize to yourself as you go forward and you choose the path of least resistance. So that's why I think people are, because they don't have a clear moral conception. They don't have a philosophy to ground their ethical convictions. They're not integrated cognitively, because they can kind of piecemeal satisfy different needs online by watching different sorts of content. If they want to feel like they're a good person, they can go to church. They can satisfy all these psychological surface level needs regarding ethics and am I being a good person, but they're not going to put it all together because they don't have the intellectual framework to put it all together. That's, I
But
think, why we're not acting on our values,
but
because they're
yes,
not integrated.
so you defined the problem, but can we fix that problem? It's not really fixable, is it?
Well, I think it is if you build that integrated worldview. I have my opinion as far as what the right course is in that direction. I think Pythagoreans were actually more or less on the right track. Platonists were on the right track. There were viable institutions that lasted centuries, that brought integration in times of crisis and that made a big difference. So I think there are historical models that we can follow. And the solution is build that integrated philosophy and have academic institutions to inculcate it in people. And that'll serve as this centralizing psychological ground then to build ethical integration, to have people actually live according to their values. So I do think there is a solution. It is having that integrated philosophy. That's what I do in my project. That's what my work is all about. That's why I have my reading groups that I run with people. And that's why I'm trying to build a school. So I do think that is the way forward. That's what I believe in.
If I say we should focus on finding people who already exist with how they are like and filter from among them people of quality and try to recruit those people of the quality only, what would you say about that?
Those people of natural quality, like people who are high IQ and who are naturally conscientious, those are people with real opportunities. So those are the hardest people to get. Like if you start a community, say you buy a trailer park somewhere and you invite people to come and have a place to stay, and then you're going to attract people who have nothing better to do. Whereas the people who do have something better to do, you're in tech, you're making a lot of money, those people can have their own kind of exclusive communities by virtue of their wealth. So high quality people are usually able to escape the consequences of like social degradation around them and form their own high income communities. So that I think it's hard to get high quality people to drop everything and make sacrifices in the name of this larger cause. People are good at rationalizing to themselves, and especially if these high quality people don't have an integrated philosophical foundation to support their ethics, like anyone else with this cognitive dissonance, they will rationalize themselves into the path of least resistance, whatever seems to be in their personal best interest. So I think that's a hard demographic to reach.
High quality people, do you think they just trying to fit in, to position themselves in a most beneficial position, just in this sense of short-sighted comfort, if I can say it this way? Because on a long run, they must understand, if they are intelligent, that they need other quality people. Have you heard about any communities which they are forming, some elite communities, if I can call it this way? Anything like that?
Yeah, there are communities like that, especially in crypto circles. A lot of the people who moved to Austin recently fit in that box. I can think of a few examples online of people who are trying to do that sort of thing. But DAOs are decentralized organizational something. It's an acronym. That's one kind of tech-based tool. I don't know if it's based on cryptocurrency exactly, blockchain or whatever it is, but it's a tool that high IQ, like tech savvy people have been using to build alternative communities. I mean, I've heard projects to like build smart cities out of those sorts of things. I don't know exactly how much is actually happening, but I mean, when people are moving to a common area like Austin, they are building community to some extent. So there are projects like that. I think those are the kinds of projects that high IQ people are going for, projects that have like social clout already. Yeah. And aren't necessarily tied to like right-wing politics explicitly. I think it's kind of enough for them to build high income, high tech efficient communities, and that'll be a filter for IQ already. So I think that's where a lot of the talent is going.
Yeah, I kind of heard as well about such communities. I heard they creating them even on the islands. They creating one in Dominican, I think. There is one in Panama. I heard about one in South America, but I'm not sure right now if it was in Argentina or not. Anyway, yes, I heard the wealthy people from Europe, from North America, packing their bags and slowly moving out to some small countries far away from our countries, just for holy peace from this madness which is taking place in our countries. And they trying to build their own comfy neighborhoods, communities. They're not really self-sufficient. They trying to focus on technological base of income, some technological projects over there. But it's really, in my perspective, it's like running from one deck of the sinking ship to another. They're just buying themselves time, in my view. But in the same time, they are isolating themselves in a country with the, lightly saying, forging population. And if anything bad will be happening with the world economy, those countries, which are basically resource colonies for countries in North America and Europe, they will suffer economically as well. The locals, when they will see that there are neighborhoods or communities of people from Europe in their countries who are living in luxus, while their own countries are turning into a
Yeah.
yeah, so they might they always do. They always do. It's visible in Venezuela or in any other country. They're always having those communist ideas to make some revolutions and instantly turn the, let's say, farmer against those who with the higher positions. And in this case, it will be those European guys who run away from those communities in those countries. Do you see where I'm heading to with this logic?
Well, it seems like potentially a dead end you're suggesting. So what is the
They will be
alternative
much
then?
better off to form those communities where they live. If you are American, stay in America. If you're in Europe, sure, in some countries it's complete madness. Go to some other European country where it's better, but stay in Europe. Don't go to lands far away, occupied by a foreign people who will not really distinguish that you do not belong there in case of any crisis situation, because it will turn against you if you will be living among them. That's what I'm trying
Well, I
to say.
mean, okay, but a lot of them aren't going off and building new communities from the ground up in third world nations. They are simply like moving into high income areas, and that gives them some kind of community. And then they have technological tools for networking with others, all sorts of different platforms that people have developed for communicating with one another on whatever lines they care about in terms of interest. I mean, the problem that I see there with that high IQ, high competency group is that all of their needs are already kind of met, but they don't have this integrated philosophy, and they don't have a good way of defining like what is actually for the best socially in the long run. What are their ethical obligations? They don't have any firm concepts in those regards because I think there isn't this fundamental worldview. I think so. For me, the problem is that they don't have an integrated worldview, and therefore they can't understand that what they're doing is, in a sense, short-sighted, and they're not building out the kinds of infrastructure they would need long run. But how do you solve that then? So having a filter and like only reaching out to high competency people in theory would be cool if they wanted to cooperate with you. But then what do
It's
you
not only
offer?
that. It's not
Yeah.
only that, Eric, because people are different in many different ways. And I'm talking here not only the, let's say, religion, I'm talking here about the politics, I'm talking here about the general idea, concept, or functionality of the community. They have different visions. They want to belong to the one that suits them the best. Is there any system currently, Eric, which provides options to such individuals who are trying to find community leaders or community groups with specific requirements?
Yes, I think that there are a number of platforms where people are trying to find communities. There's one in particular, Urbit, that I've heard is pretty popular. It also is based on some kind of blockchain type thing, and it's something like buying like digital real estate. It's apparently very easy coding language for building your networks in, and I've heard people talk about like forming communities in that way. And there has been over the last few years a kind of ghettoization online where niche interest groups are forming their own communities on their own platforms. So I do think there are solutions if you're looking for a community in a certain niche interest. Generally there are platforms that people use for that, but I know that your website is one that's offering to do a similar thing, and I'm not against that existing. So like how does that offer an advantage on other means of networking as currently exist? For example, like a lot of people use Telegram as a messaging app, and you can subscribe to the people that you're interested in following and then look at their live chats, participate in their live chats, form different groups in there. Or there's Discord. Obviously, I don't like Discord as a platform for a variety of reasons, but I used to use it, and you can meet all sorts of people by exploring different servers that have their own purpose for existing for each individual Discord server. I mean, there's a ton of ways that people with niche interests can find like-minded people online and get together. There are ways currently, but you want to improve on that.
It really depends how much like-minded, because if someone agrees on the general idea and you're calling that a like-minded, well, yeah, it's very surface level. What actually matters is what this guy or this woman is standing up for, or is it some like the community over there where I can buy this residence for 200,000? Is that a community of some anarcho-capitalists, or what are they? Who is a boss over there? What are his plans and stuff like that? All those things a possible person who wants to join in community should be able to know in advance without even talking to the community group, to any members over there. Because one of the most time-wasting process, which in most of cases ending up with disappointment at the end for anybody interested, is discovering new person or discovering new group or community group. It takes time. You need to engage yourself. Usually it's about buying trust. They need to get to know you. You sacrifice months very often operating in the community until you discover that it's some cancerous retardation that is going on over there, and you're like, nah, I will pass, and you starting up again where you was before all of that, and time wasted. So yeah, it's like I haven't heard before about system which allows to provide information about everything what you possibly might need to know to make a judgment if this person or a community is worth of my attention or not, without revealing identity of any people participating in this process. And that's actually the process which I implemented on our platform, on the Polmatch platform, where people are anonymous because nobody knows who you really are, but based on your profile, there are informations which reveal how you really are like. Even if you are a type of a asshole of some sort, or actually a decent person with strong morals. And when it comes to communities, yeah, as I told you, it's religion, it's politics, it's some core ideas for functionality. All those things matters and might become a decisive factor if you are interested into someone or some community group or not. Do you know any other platform or a system which is introducing this type of filtering where you can just sacrifice like 10 seconds to read few sections of a person profile or a community profile to basically know everything, which will help you to make the strategic decision about showing deeper interest into it or not?
It's similar, though, in a way to the way that social media sites used to function. Something like MySpace was a way of getting to know what's important to someone quickly. You could scroll through and see their interests, how they characterize themselves. It's an extension of a similar technology where you're relying on people's good faith providing of relevant information about themselves and having it kind of succinctly packed into an efficiently designed profile, so that where you can look at someone on the website and see, okay, how do they define themselves politically, what are they interested in, etc., in terms of relationships. And streamlining that, I can see the value in, provided that there is a lot of traffic on the website. But on the other hand, since it is anonymous, there is always the possibility of lying on a profile. There's the possibility of phishing and trying to deceive people and scam people through a profile like that. And I think ultimately there's not going to be a shortcut to vetting and getting to know someone and understanding whether or not you're compatible in any kind of relationship,
There
whether it's
is, there is, Eric.
there's the shortcut. Okay, what's the shortcut?
Basically, if you forcing person to risk his own money by participating in his declarations, which means this most simple implementation of such system is, well, I claim I am that, and as a proof that I am not fooling around, here is my account, which is verified. And yeah, here is a proof that I actually am serious about it because I actually invested some money as well into it. And yeah, when people know they're investing something into it, they need to preserve their own image because otherwise it might backfire at whatever they invested money in. So yeah, there is a system to filter that, to eliminate possible liars. Because why would someone lie and in the same time invest money into it? Why it might backfire at him? No, I don't think it would be worth it. What do you think?
Well, that would cut down spam at least, because then it isn't free for bots to get in there, create fake accounts, and get in people's DMs for whatever purpose. So it would cut down on that. But then, if it's a significant amount of money, that is a deterrent for a lot of. It will necessarily be a deterrent for a number of people, and that cuts down the number of profiles overall on the website, number of people that you're interacting with. So I don't know if it's a foolproof solution, but it does follow the principle of skin in the game, where you have to know that someone else takes the pursuit of relationship seriously and they are willing to invest something in it. I don't know exactly how I feel about that. I don't think I would be paying money to have access to profiles. Like right now, I have my YouTube channel, and that's how I advertise my ideas.
Eric,
So that's what I would.
so let's kind of improve this system for you. Everything is for free. You can create profiles for free. But if you want to increase your credibility, then you can make your account, for example, premium by investing some money into it. So anybody will see that, oh, this guy is actually having a paid account, so he's not fooling around. I will better listen and check him out. Does that make sense? So yeah, you can be free, scroll around to people.
Option. Yeah, an option. But then you'll still have the problem of spam, because the bots can get in there and create fake accounts, or someone who is looking to fish for information who's not using a bot can create the profile. Having that extra degree of credibility by paying money, maybe that would be useful. I don't know if it necessarily shows that everything someone is saying is in earnest, or that they necessarily even know what is truly important to them, because people don't have to lie on a profile in order to mischaracterize themselves. They can be lying to themselves about what is truly valuable. So someone can believe, based on their kind of ideological attachments, that they have this number one value, but then when there comes a choice between their individual comfort and the ideological cause, often they just go with their individual comfort. So like the information you're getting is only as good as people's self-reporting about that information. So there's two ways of going about it. You can meet people where they are and try to say, okay, what does everyone currently believe? What are people's convictions? What are people's value systems? And then match them on the basis of those currently existing value systems. And that is one way to go. I personally believe in the truth of a single philosophical system, a single system of ethics, and convincing people of that and bringing people into alignment, not on the basis of one person's ideology, but on the basis of like a true philosophical system that is attested through time. So that's kind of my approach. Not I have to find someone who already agrees, but I have to build ways of proving the credibility of a singular value system that's integrated with scientific knowledge, epistemology, ontology, metaphysics, all of that together. Yes, it's more efficient in a way, meeting someone who already shares those values. But the way I see it, like very few people have it right when it comes to the big picture philosophically. And the work that I would want to do then is trying to build out that integral philosophy, persuade people of that integral philosophy. And so I'm not necessarily looking to meet people where they are and match with people who are on the right track. I'm looking for people to kind of admit that we don't know what's going on at the largest scales. There are many questions that we don't have answers to that are significant. Like, okay, what's the nature of the soul? Like, what are we really? Is there life after death? What is the basis of objective morality? Questions like these. What is the significance of broader identity groups that you participate in metaphysically? Like, how does that bear on your soul? These sorts of questions people do not have good answers to in general. Christians have answers they would give, and that varies by denomination. But in general, I think there are enough people who are philosophically inclined, who are looking for the truth, who recognize they don't have good answers for these things. So that's kind of the reality of the situation that I see when I look out at where people are coming from. People are lost and they don't have the right answers. So rather than trying to find people who already believe all the things that I believe, I would be looking to find people who are truth seekers, who are willing to engage in open dialogue. Now, that is a value system in a way of itself. You believe there is such a thing as the truth, and you can be persuaded into it. But
okay, but I don't see a problem here. So wait. Let's just kind of clarify the system, how it would work in a perfect scenario. So first, if I want to find a community or a community member, I'm going to this platform of some sort. I applying the filters which are mandatory for me, which is religion, politics, interest, whatever else I want about this community or a person. Okay, I got like thousands of results which are matching. Okay, I'm gonna narrow the results even more by putting some more requirements according to whatever I got over there. I got hundreds of results. Okay, I'm finding up some guy who claims to be a community leader. Okay, I sending him a message, then I starting to tag with him. But yeah, the next stage would be to engage yourself into conversation with the person. Another stage would be to engage yourself into a meeting, because really, lying can occur everywhere in the real life as well. And the only way to verify someone is a liar or not is through time and in constant interaction
Sure.
with the person, right?
Yes.
So we can only just make to maximally efficient system, which saves you time to the maximum by allowing you to filter out
Yeah.
everything you require
I,
you
I
decide.
I understand like the potential benefit of that, but I'm saying from my perspective, right? The problem is not finding people who already agree. The problem is finding the right worldview that all of us should believe in because it's true. And I believe there is one right worldview. I'm seeking it in my own personal philosophical life and also like in conversations with others. So I naturally do meet people who have like-minded views, just like I find fellow YouTube creators or people who watch my videos. And for me, I'm already reaching out to thousands of people at a time, and I'm talking about this one worldview that I think is the right one that needs to be at the core of community-based projects. And I'm making that case, and the filter is like whoever reaches out back to me in that context. So for my purposes, where I already have a sizable audience, I'm making contact with a lot of people, I already have projects where I can bring people in and spend time in our reading groups or whatever it is, that seemed much more efficient than trying to use a platform like yours in my particular case. Now, not everyone has an audience, and if you're looking to find people who already align with your value structure, that would work. But then again, that's not really what I believe in. I don't think we should be like finding each other on the basis of our niche interests. And I think we should all be looking for the truth. And like, hey, it's not like I believe I have all of it already, but I kind of am doubling down on what I believe to be true. And I want to persuade people of that or be persuaded, and I'm willing to engage in open discussion with anyone who believes in a different approach. But like in this case, a value neutral platform, a platform that doesn't have ideological commitments and tries to facilitate people matching each other on the basis of their ideological commitments. In my circumstance, it's not helpful in building community in my case, because there are other tools that I already have that do just that. And that there
Eric,
is
let's talk
kind of
about it.
filter already.
Let's talk about this common ground for the community building and stuff, because it's very important. Look, one community is not enough. There must be a network of communities on a national scale, preferably worldwide, on a global scale.
Yeah, I agree with that.
You agree,
I
right?
have videos where I talk about my own model
Yeah.
as far as
So,
that goes. Yeah.
so tell me, Eric, what is the common factors, some common ground between those communities? Let's say they exist. There is plenty of them in Germany, in Poland, in Canada, in United States, and common ground for all of them to somehow understand each other, that we need to support each other, we need to prioritize like economic cooperation with each other and stick together. We need to stick together in case of any crisis situations ahead, and also even support each other in those times. What will be the common ground between them?
Okay, my opinion is that a network of communities like that can only function if that common ground is religious level worldview consensus. And people with different ideologies, with different value systems, will not make fast friends for very long because they have different values. So you need religious level consensus to have that network of communities operating.
I will protest about that. I can tell you that I got atheists, I got pagans. I'm a Christian, by the way. I'm a Catholic Christian. And I have my view on the church, but still, it's like Christianity in my family was always strong. But anyway, I'm a Christian. I got pagans in my work team. I got those atheists. I got Muslim guy. I got some Hindi guy as well. And I can tell you that for all the years which I operating with them, the way how we are like, there is no conflicts. We're getting along in cooperation in every form. People take things seriously. Sometimes obviously they fool, but we can get along easily. if I can get along with so different people, then yeah, you can get along with so different people in the different communities if you cooperate on a common ground, but you need the common ground for it, and it cannot be religion. If you're gonna put a religion on it, you're gonna discriminate a lot of people and you're gonna turn them hostile against you.
If you're an honest Christian, like a real true believing Christian, then you have to persuade people of the truth of your faith. You are commanded to evangelize your faith. I'm a perennialist philosophically, where I think that the basic kind of metaphysics underlying a lot of world religions is the same. But confessionally, I'm also Christian, and I do think that it should be the universe. I don't think you should have multiple religions at the end of the day. I do think that there is a command to have one universal religion. Like that's where I'm coming from. So this kind of ecumenicalism where we have like different belief systems and different communities all cooperating together, like that's kind of just multiculturalism, and it doesn't seem to be like
No,
workable
apply.
at scale.
I have my own Christian community, and that's where I'm
Mhm.
doing my Christian stuff, right? But I understand that those guys over there who are, I don't know, some pagan, Nordic, whatever else they are, and they are my neighbors, and I know that we might help each other and benefit each other in difficult times. So, hey, guys, we are on the same side in general. And yeah, we have our own communities, our own politics in the communities, but let's just stick together and let's just provide mutual support in case one is in need,
No,
because I
but
know that I
why?
can.
That's just a just so like, oh, we can cooperate. Like, but where's the moral force to say that we ought to cooperate? To have the
I will
continued
tell you what it is,
belief.
but
Let me finish the point. To have the continued belief that we should be cooperating is to have some kind of moral conviction along those lines. And what is the ground of that moral conviction that won't change through time? Circumstances can force people together to cooperate, but in order to have continued cooperation, you need something that doesn't go away. Now, for some groups, that can be their ethnic identity. For some groups, that can be their religion, which keeps the value system in common. But how do you have a cross ideological, multicultural value system that stays constant, that keeps all of these groups in common? Where is the moral force of that conviction that we ought to all cooperate?
we are the same type of people with the similar bloodlines, and we need to care for each other because situation for us is very difficult all over the world right now. And this moral principle here comes that we need to care for each other. Every single one of us is precious, and if you guys gonna go away, we're gonna be weaker, and sooner or later bad things will come for us as well. You see where I'm going with this?
Yeah, well, I do in a way, but I don't think that is a real moral foundation that sticks. And it hasn't been like that level of cooperation on the basis of shared bloodline at like a civilizational scale has never maintained itself. And if you think about the way that evolution works, whole groups of similar closely related bloodlines in the animal kingdom don't all have common interests. What happens is a small subset of a type of species becomes very successful and they expand to replace all the organisms that are most similar to themselves. So in evolutionary terms, it's not that the broader race that you're a part of, it's very important that that whole group continues. What matters is that your breeding stock, your community, what you're a part of is the successful one, and that expands. Now, I don't think it has to be that way. That's just the way that evolution works. So the idea is that it's not necessarily true that like being closely related to someone makes you an ally to them. Sometimes being closely related to someone who is different in key ways makes them your closest rival, like your most important rival, because you're all fighting for the same ecological niche. Like there's the saying that a potter is not a friend to a potter because you're doing the same, you're of the same type. And so you're fighting for the same resources inherently. So there is something like that is a counter argument to we're all of one stock. We all face common challenges. Like the elites of European descent, elites don't have this perspective that the fate of the race in general is what matters. They don't think that way at all. They think that they are secure in their economic prospects because they have their exclusive communities, they have their rich people enclaves, they have their bunkers, they have like their needs are met, and they're not worried about what's happening to the rest of their broader race, because I think they rightly believe that their like genetic progeny is secure given their circumstance. So they continually work to strengthen their individual position. They're not worried about what's happening with everyone else who happens to look like them. And I think that's the way that evolution works in general.
Sure, but most of the things right now is a social engineering and a social construct. And why do we need to imitate standards based on something from the past? Why can't we just create something new? Why can't we just say the time for the domination of a one group from among our species should be over? It's done. It should be a history. Right now, all of us and our future is at stake here. We should stop thinking in this retarded, old-fashioned look. There are biggest threat out there behind the horizon. They are spreading already on our lands. Let's just do what's right and try to make our position strong as a people.
Right. But what makes them a people, what makes them of one common identity, it's more than blood. And that's the way that communities have survived historically for thousands of years. It's not simply an ethnic or racial identity that they share in common that allows them to cooperate. It is mythology, religion, and obviously material interests in common. And I think you agree that that has to be factored in. That's something we haven't really discussed as much, is like how to have that shared economic interest. But anyway, before we get there, I don't think you can have shared economic interest and blood keep people together alone. I think you need mythology, ideology, religion in order to even justify that claim that we ought to all work together. You have to have some more fundamental ethical groundwork which supports it. You're making an appeal that we ought to do this because look, we all have a common destiny. We're all like, but unless someone agrees with you already, that's not technically an argument. To build an argument, you need to have a justification for that moral claim, and that has to be grounded in a more fundamental level of philosophy. So I think inevitably, if you try to have some framework for workable multiculturalism, multicultural cooperation like you're advocating, that common framework is going to have philosophical coherence in order that people continually go back to it. In my opinion, every branch of philosophy merges together. The world is a unified whole. And so you can't have just like a kind of pragmatic philosophical basis for cooperation that goes only so far. I don't think that's how philosophy works. I think it only works, a worldview only works if all of the branches of philosophy are unified and tied together. That's my opinion. So I don't think you can have a kind of pragmatic solution where like, oh, we're all kind of in the same boat. We should all cooperate regardless of our ideological differences. Because that moral proposition, we ought to all cooperate, will be held to as long as people feel like holding to it, unless there's a more fundamental philosophical justification. Not a pragmatic justification is not sufficient because the pragmatic details may change, people's value systems may change, all of those things change, and you're not going to have continual cooperation. So if you try to build this multicultural coalition long run, I think you're wasting your resources unless you have an integrated philosophy that keeps it all together coherently. But then you're not really dealing with multiculturalism anymore. You're dealing with like one new worldview that you want everyone to adopt in order to get into this cooperative framework. So I don't agree with the multicultural, like, well, we'll have different views and we'll all kind of get together and get along, because the idea that we should all get along may run counter to any of those individual worldviews at one point in time or another.
In
so
my
I
work
don't
server,
agree that.
in my work server in this team where I got the guy from India and that one Muslim guy. In the recruitation process to our work team, there is one condition which anybody needs to accept, and this is like according to those words. We want to live in peace and happiness in lands of our ancestors, and we wish the same for everybody else. As long as you are willing to respect that, we are on the same board. And yeah, they totally get along with this. They are happy to accept that and still work together and cooperate. So multicultural, I oppose that. In my opinion, in my view, multiculturalism is cancer. It's absolute destruction of the long run. It's never going to work. America is the best example of it, and what is happening today with the minority groups over there. So
Okay.
that's my view on multiculturalism. It doesn't
Yeah,
work.
I'm using the term in a different sense, just to say that what you're recommending is a coalition of many cultures. So that's a kind of multiculturalism in a different sense. But anyway, I get what you're saying. So
Okay, so I'm
let's
saying we
skip
should put
over this
national.
question. Skip over the question of like the shared worldview that justifies that. You say the precondition is you believe that people ought to live in peace and harmony in the lands of their ancestors, and suppose everyone like continues to agree with that.
Mhm.
That claim, like at one level, is just a non-interventionist claim that like, okay, let everyone live in peace. But obviously, that's not sufficient. It's not sufficient just to leave each other alone. We also have to work.
That's basically a declaration,
So
which means I'm not gonna be pushing ever for multiculturalism in your community group or any. That's basically
right.
the
Okay, but anyway, it does need to act as a justification for proactive economic cooperation to have
no,
use,
no,
as a framework. So, assuming
for,
that people agree with this, how does that get them to economically cooperate, and how does your
that's not
platform facilitate economic cooperation?
no, that's not the reason for cooperation. That's just the reason to just be on board, to be willing to work together. But the main reason why we should cooperate is because there are threats out there right now for our civilization. And our civilization today is weak, and it becomes weaker. If we're gonna continue this way, remaining divided and selfish, short-sighted, we all gonna end up at the bottom. We are on the same ship. Me, you, Canadian, some freaky Nordic pagan, or some whatever else. We are on the same boat. We are on this all the same boat because of certain features in our blood and physicals and stuff like that. And we all gonna pay the highest price if we're gonna be dominated by external forces and social engineering in our countries and more. So if we want to form communities which will actually survive difficult times ahead, there must be many of those communities. They must be supportive of each other, and we must sort of like operate like according to some defined laws or regulations. In case if bad things are happening to one of us, all of us must be willing to stand up for it, because without that one guy who is suffering right now, if he's gonna be eliminated, it means all of us will be weaker until there will be one left, crushed like a little bug by those outside forces. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
Well, so now the network of communities is going to have shared laws. So that's what I'm getting at, is that like this pragmatic declaration that we all should help each other quickly will expand into a whole framework that everyone has to buy all the pieces of. This is kind of related to, I don't know if you know what the Duhem-Quine thesis is, but it's basically that no hypothesis or theory or single observable fact stands in isolation. It always implicates other facets of your worldview. So there's no such thing as like a brute fact in science. Interpreting a fact requires the rest of your philosophical worldview already. And I think that generalizes to philosophy as a whole. So any ethical proposition by itself, quickly, if you spin out the entailments, going to imply a lot of other things. And you kind of demonstrated that just now, where you start with this general pragmatic declaration and then very quickly get to now we all need a common legal framework distributed around the world.
Well,
Okay, to
that's
have
a
people
metaphor.
agree to
It's a
all of
common
that,
sense. It's
you're
a
going to
metaphor.
need a coherent worldview that supports it long run.
It's a common sense. I will try to refer to a common sense of our situation. It doesn't
Um,
need to be allowed. It needs to be a common sense.
okay, you mentioned law before.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's like a law, but it's a common logic, common sense. It should be
And
obvious that
and I
we're gonna.
I
Yeah.
just kind of disagree with that. I don't think that
Why?
we're all going to have a common apprehension of what constitutes a good law. I don't think it's like
Okay,
what is
so we're
common
gonna
sense in
let
one
the
place
retards be
is
alone
different.
and die on their own. But those who are
No.
smart,
So the
let
filter is like a competency and IQ thing. So smart enough people who form these communities will all recognize that there is a common pseudo legal framework that they should all adopt, and they'll kind of
yes,
spontaneously
yes.
agree to it. But that's a big claim. That's that we'll all understand that there is a singular code of conduct and law and interact, like how we should interact, and we're all going to just agree to that. I think you need mechanisms to build that consensus. I don't think common sense is enough to get that kind of legal level cooperation. It hasn't been historically. You need institutions to build that consensus. The Peer Academy solution, I have the process of building law and formalizing the worldview spelled out very explicitly. And I don't know what your solution is there, but like in my view, once you start that process of codifying the rule set that everyone follows, that's going to have to move in tandem with like propositions about the facts. And as with that Duhem Quine thesis thing, no fact stands in isolation. It always involves a broader worldview. And so I kind of just accept that, all right, if you're going to have common law, common ethics, common things in cooperation with others, you're going to need that broader work. So that seems like a fundamental disagreement between you and I. You think that like people with different ideological level or religious level worldviews can still agree on a common sense kind of legal framework to cooperate moving forward. I don't think that's the case, because people do have legitimate different value systems and may disagree about the legal system. And the way to avoid that, in my
I'm
opinion,
saying,
is to
Eric,
have
that
the view.
Eric, from my position, we should never put any law obligations or regulations between the communities, because if you do that, you are interfering into community politics itself. And I told you in private before our call here today that we should never interfere into community politics. That's pretty much where you're stepping up on the line, where you're pushing up for the community to be rebellious, because hey, you're taking away our freedom of deciding for ourselves. No, that's why there should be no law regulating some cooperation between communities. You should never enforce that.
So no actual law, but in any case, you're expecting some sort of common sense code of community interaction to prevail. We would need a mechanism for how that comes about. And more importantly, though, I want to know, what is the mechanism for facilitating economic cooperation? How do you get that off the ground?
So let's go on to that. Let's say we got the communities and we got this platform. So if we want to start to build our new, I call it economic block, with the economic zones from the scratch, we need to find out what those communities have to offer, what type of assets. Maybe one has a lumber mill, some other has a cornfield, I don't know. Combine them into one database where we will see where the community is operating, what assets they got, what they bring to the table, what type of services they need, what they offer. And you can not only compare this data, but actually use this data to connect those communities into economic cooperation. Hey, I'm producing furniture in my community here, 150 kilometers away from yours. And oh yeah, I'm producing wood. So how about you supply me for some better price, just so we save on the transport or something? Make some most beneficial deals to benefit the communities itself and community growth, with the idea to make this community network stronger and more relevant in your region, province where you operate, so that those communities will be growing and they will have a more impact on maybe local politics where they operate. So our guys will get to the local administration, slowly starting to take over the leading roles in the area, and more. With the economic growth of your business networks or cooperation, your influence on local population and administration and functionality of the region grows. And that's pretty much how we can slowly start retaking control. Maybe, but I doubt it will be possible in the next 400 years, just because of how everything is constructed today. But still, such system where we have where those community groups are able to supply, trade with each other, is allowing us to build this economic block, which will not only operate in symbiosis with the current world economy, because it will be operating within the system, but if anything bad happens to the world economy, to the supply chain, transportation, logistics in your country, then our system will stay alive. It still will be able to function. We will be able to keep the country economy to a certain extent functional thanks to our community groups. Do you know how position of such community groups would grow in eyes of regular people if the country and the government fail to keep the economy going of the country, but suddenly there are community groups, well organized, working together, still able to produce and distribute goods? This is kind of part of my plan. But anyway, You get the idea. And yes, it is possible. Christian communities in the US, I know some of them, they produce lots of different things. If they will have other communities willing to combine their assets and cooperation into grow their businesses, yeah, it has a huge potential. Possibilities.
Yeah, the idea that these groups are going to be offering each other discounts.
I'm not saying necessary. I'm just saying it's a possibility. Maybe they will make some good deals with each other.
Yeah, so having a registry of people who agree, I mean, again, that registry is going to have to be situated somewhere, hosted somehow, and there's going to be some common identity that binds people in this cooperation network. And if that's, your
It's
site, it's
already on the
whoever.
Polmatch platform. Everything is over there integrated.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, if it's on your site, then the definition of what you can believe and be part of it is what I'm concerned about.
Okay, so let's talk about it.
See, that's kind of the problem. Like, I think you need a comprehensive worldview to facilitate cooperation long term. Whereas you have like a couple statements that you want people to agree with, like we should all live in peace and harmony and in the lands of our ancestors and so forth. And
I was very simplifying things.
yeah, I think also things have to be more complex than that to have long lasting cooperation and an agreement. But like, I wouldn't stop at just what seems like a pragmatic common sense place. I think the only way to build that in a robust way, long run, is to have full worldview level cooperation. What I want to do is build a school where we formalize the process of what is that worldview that we are holding to at the moment and what are the codes of conduct. And I have mechanisms also kind of planned out to go from that first school to secondary communities, putting certain people in charge of those communities. And my plan would be to build out a network of communities that are formally integrated and have the same educational system, the same rule set. There would be variation in my model between communities at some level, but they're all integrated into the same formal system at a worldview level in order to facilitate continued cooperation and keep the whole thing coherent. And I would build that on those lines. And if people want to cooperate with me on that, I'm more than open to it. But I don't see necessarily like an advantage right now, like in if I start my school up, what am I supposed to do? Any cooperation that I engage in with a community that is disconnected from my project and the worldview that I'm encouraging, not me personally, but what the institution generates through its processes of consensus building, any cooperation with communities outside of that will just be like whatever pragmatically is useful and economically viable. And I like, how much time do I devote to some additional like I don't believe in many different worldviews cooperating together, held together by a meta worldview of like, oh, peace and harmony, or like whatever it is. I don't believe in that. I believe in a singular truth that all of us should hold to. And I have my way of doing that, and if someone wants to argue that another way is superior, then we can do that. So I guess you're arguing that it's better. But my basic point is, how do you keep robust cooperation long run unless you have that meta worldview that codifies and justifies the ethical statements and the types of organization that are encouraged? I just don't see how that holds together unless you have a comprehensive worldview.
All right. I want to discuss this in details because this is kind of very important for you. So, Eric, tell me, based on your own community vision model, what type of people, what groups of people you cannot get along with, or you cannot picture yourself cooperating with if they would be operating in a separate communities? What is the most problematic group of people out there with whom you won't be able to cooperate with as a fellow community group?
Well, I guess, what do you mean by fellow community group? Because my model does incorporate multiple.
Let's say there is a community of LARPing pagans who are like doing a booga over the fire and living primitive lifestyle and doing fishing all the time. What's wrong with them?
Nothing. I can leave them alone or economically trade with them if it's advantageous, but they're simply not part of the system that I would be trying to build. And I don't see.
But it's your community. They are separate community. There's no issue.
Yeah, if they're a separate community, there's no issue. But then we're not part of a larger political bloc or economic bloc. We're just two separate communities. Whereas I
There should
think you need
never be a
communities that are
political
tightly
bloc,
networked
Eric.
together. Say again?
There should never be a political bloc. Don't even try to build this. If there will be organization uniting those communities into this cooperation, it must be completely neutral ground. They cannot interfere into national or community politics anyhow. You cannot make an institution or some organization which will be like giving orders or making sure that community functions as they expect them to do. No, you cannot do that. You can command your own community, you can cooperate with other communities, but don't expect to put some law above all of you, which all of you will be forced to follow.
Okay, well, I just see the level of integration being very weak. You can encourage like communication between the communities and economic cooperation, but how do you encourage it, and why are people incentivized in these separate communities to work together? Like I have the same kind of vision. You need multiple communities, but in
Mhm.
my vision, the communities to be meaningfully networked together need to share a common worldview, a common set of laws at the highest level, even if there are variations in local laws for particular communities. And that's the approach that I think
Well,
would work. And anything,
self-preservation. Why not to appeal to self-preservation?
because
Tell them
it's not
straight.
enough. That is not enough to motivate people. Racial sentiments are not enough to motivate
No, no, no,
ethical
not only that, not only
conduct.
that. There
Uh-huh.
are many things, including this, that our countries will become a police state. They're gonna come from your children. They're gonna
Yeah,
detach the system, stuff like that. If you want to have a future, if you are on our side, you are on the same boat. Come on, we must cooperate. There is no harm. I am not demanding anything from you. Let's just check what we have to offer to each other and support each other if we can afford that. That's it.
but what I don't agree with is that
Yeah.
you can have one set of beliefs and I have a different set of beliefs, and we just kind of cooperate in parallel.
What
For me,
beliefs? Religious beliefs?
real cooperation is going to involve building consensus, because I do believe there is one truth and we can all find it. So if I want to really meaningfully cooperate someone and be on a common team with them in any capacity, I want that discourse to be open, where we allow building towards a common worldview, a common truth that we both recognize.
It is
And you
open.
need
You
that
can. You
to
are free to
some
come.
degree. What's
You
that?
are free to convince anybody to you being right, and you should be open to be convinced to be wrong if so. But it's
Uh-huh.
relevant. I don't see why you're pushing for this so, as it is so important. There are
Well,
some things which are critical that you guys both must agree upon, sure, but you need to be very specific, Eric. What is so important for you to be these common beliefs with that other community groups with whom you want to cooperate with?
I don't want to approach my project with like, because I obviously have my own philosophical system that I believe is more or less true, and I'm
Yeah.
looking to prove it and reading different authors, etc. But
Okay.
I don't want to approach it presuming that everything that I believe is true. So at a meta level, the reason why philosophical, and I've tried to make this point multiple times already, the reason why philosophical consensus is important is that is what you use to justify your codes of conduct. Like, what are the laws within a community? What are the laws between communities? And like, you can use the term law or not. I think law
Okay,
at
it's your
some level
community, it's
is
your house.
necessary. I think law is necessary at some level to keep the relationship between communities healthy and keep them cooperating. I think you need tightly integrated communities. And
Oh,
also, the number one important thing in my mind is you need a new philosophical system that grounds scientific claims so that you can build like research programs in an integrated way. My approach to science is that you need integral cooperation between fields in science, and the only way to do that is if they're grounded in a common philosophy. And I think that work is more important than the kind of economic cooperation we would like. Do I have anything in principle against like trading lumber for corn with some like Nordic pagan group? No, that's fine. That's just like basic economic activity. And like, would I give them some discount? I guess if they're giving me a discount, but then like, why not just have a barter economy where we're just trading the goods? in that, like, you can't exactly offer a discount in barter unless one person is taking a loss, so like, would I barter with other groups and be open to trading with them? Sure, but to my mind, the more important thing is solving the worldview level and scientific problems that we face, because I see myself and any community that I'm a part of as in competition with elite groups who have
Yes.
research programs where they're looking at technologies of control, manipulation. And I think unless you have alternative research programs and alternative scientific theories and like a whole alternative intellectual system, you're just not going to compete with this like integrated globalists, like scientism,
Yes.
TM way of doing things. Okay, so if you're going to have scientific cooperation and you're going to build this worldview, you need to have a mechanism to get to deep level consensus. People being content to just like, oh, well, I agree that this is important, and we should agree to this, but these other things, like you can have your private beliefs. I don't believe that because of the Duhem-Quine thesis, because this general principle that one philosophical belief, one scientific theory, if you spin out all the consequences, implies at some level all of the others. They don't stand in isolation. You can't have piecemeal worldviews. It has to be integrated. It inevitably is integrated because of the structure of logic. Because when you believe one thing about ethics, you are making claims about metaphysics at the same time. You are making claims about ontology. You can't make claims in isolation. So it's because of this that I think you need integrated worldviews to keep cooperation going and to build a parallel system that could actually compete. The kind of system that you're talking about, where you have different communities with different worldviews that kind of have pragmatic level cooperation economically, but no law uniting them, it's like that can't compete with the current global system. What I'm suggesting, where there's a singular worldview building system, a singular academic system, a singular system of law holding integrated communities together, that I think in a connected, distributed scientific research program to like give yourself a leg up, that might compete with the current global elite.
Eric,
But the disintegrated kind of multicultural solution just doesn't. I don't think it
Eric,
has a chance.
Eric, you will not enforce. Well, you will not unite communities to serve the same mutual goals and mutual benefit by enforcing anything on them. You cannot do that. If you're gonna do that, they're gonna just step away from you. People are not rational in most of cases. I was dealing with lots of those the different people. I seen how the Christians and pagans are acting to each other. I know they can cooperate. I can do that to make them cooperate on a common ground. The same with the scientific field, as you just spoke about. Cooperate in the scientific field with those who are like you, with other communities like that. But do not exclude those who are not. Just do not engage them into this field, and that's it.
Yeah, like I said, like some level of economic cooperation, barter, or whatever with other communities or other individuals for that matter is fine. But then it's really no different than just general economic activity in the broader society. But I think what matters is having a network of communities that are more tightly integrated in that to have an effective kind of parallel society strategy. And I'm not looking to like reach out to existing communities and enforce my concepts of law or whatever my school system comes up with as the law. I'm not looking to enforce that on already existing communities at all. My strategy is build a school. I have the land for it. I'm working on that. And once I have that school up and running, the project is to train leaders of subsequent communities, build funds for subsequent communities, and then found those next communities. So I'm not looking to like bring together a bunch of existing communities. I'm looking to have one seed community send out colonies successively. I'm not looking to persuade, I'm looking to grow new communities that are on a firmer foundation. The problem is with a
So
lot of
good.
existing communities, the foundation is not firm because people are content with this kind of surface level, oh yeah, we all have a common view, and that'll allow us to cooperate. But people's opinions change. If it's grounded in opinion rather than an integrated philosophical system, cooperation won't last. That's what I believe. So, and therefore, when I'm looking to cooperate with people, I'm looking to arrive at fundamental worldview level consensus. Because then, like, what should we do is not a matter of opinion. What should we do? The ethical prescriptions that we come up with is a matter of philosophical doctrine. And we can agree or disagree about the philosophical doctrine in a more rigorous way than we can persuade one another loosely about our basic convictions about what's right to do or not. So, like, to have real ethical consensus, I think you need philosophical consensus at a deep level. And that's what I'm looking for. And if I can do that with you, if you want to engage in debate about, points of metaphysics and all of that, that's the kind of work that I think needs to be done. And in a sense, that's what we're doing. We're having a conversation about how parallel communities could operate. And yeah, I believe that parallel communities networked together will not work unless there is fundamental worldview level consensus holding the ethical cooperation constant.
I say we simply apply rules to that of a natural selection, which means the best, strongest, smartest, most stable communities will survive and will flourish, while the communities who make the bad decisions and who will decide to act differently, and if they will start falling apart, you will just, communities like yours will simply start consuming them in, because you're going to be attracting members from those other communities into yours. I say we just let these things grow this way, because I really don't see a problem with what you intend to do with your community and your community babies. I mean, the baby community you're creating.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Just to like speak from my personal situation. So now here I am. I have my YouTube channel. I have my land. I have the ability to reach out to people to build the community that I'm most interested in building right now. I'm looking for people. So I'm kind of inclined just to keep doing what I'm doing and try to build my community. And if someone wants to cooperate with me in a deep sense and arrive at consensus, well, they can come out and be at the school for a while and have a bunch of conversations. And like, then we're on the same page. But I don't want to invest a lot of time and faith in cooperating with people who aren't willing to do that. Like, if you're not willing to show up and have a bunch of conversations and get to deep worldview level consensus, then you're not the kind of person that I'm looking to cooperate with at the moment. Like, that's just kind of as a matter of what do I see being beneficial to my goal of building that community. I think I need to focus on people who do want philosophical consensus and build, and that's what I'm doing primarily, is trying to get to that philosophical consensus. My approach has been to go through historical roots, like getting people to read Plato together. That's what we're doing in my groups and other related texts. And like, so I'm kind of doing what I'm doing, trying to, and I understand your frustration that you've expressed to me, where people like who are claiming to want to help the situation of quote unquote our people aren't really like showing up and doing what they should be doing. And I feel the same way, but like I have my project that I'm trying to do, and I have reasons why I believe it's the right approach, and that's where I'm focusing my energies. So that's kind of where we stand at the moment. If your website stands to help me in that, then great. But like
It
I said,
will.
I already talked to thousands of people. I'm already in contact with people who have found me on the basis of the content that I
Eric,
put out. And
let
that
me
seems more
tell you,
efficient, right?
let me tell you what we should do together, and you will tell me if you approve or not. I will tell you everything step by step, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Look, there is lots of communities which we need to discover, and there is lots of people, actually a majority of quality people, they are isolated, alone. Most of them are stuck in the cities and they looking for communities to join. I assure you, there are thousands of people like that. So obviously the first step, which I am still working on right now and which you will help me with, I will tell you how, is to reach those people and inform them about this whole plan of mine. And I will tell you, of course, how it's going to apply to your community and more. So how do I need to do that? My idea is that I'm going to put myself into a debates or a public discussions with those popular YouTubers and other people like you, Eric, where we will clarify, well, I will clarify them on those 5 points, which I sent you here on the chat, and ask them what solution do they propose. And I'm gonna hear what they got to say, and then I'm gonna present them what I am proposing. So if they will approve, if each one of them will not propose anything better than what I'm bringing to the table, then I will tell them, I know some communities, there is a platform already, which we are assembling people on who are willing to form communities, who wants to join, who are already owning communities. And I'm trying to make a big list of those community groups all over the world. So we will know what type of potential we actually have on building a globalized network of community groups working together in the future in case of any possible future scenario which we are able to predict. So my approach is that I'm going to simply be appealing for a public discussions and a debates with the people with authority and more, and try to reason with them, convince them to join us in building this database about our potential. What's your view on this? Do you approve it?
You can reach out and try to debate popular
I mean, don't
YouTubers
tell me
about.
yet. Don't tell me yet. We will be specific later. Just focus on the general idea and the plan which are proposed how to make it happen. So, do you approve it?
Is the plan to debate popular voices out there to get exposure and to just
I'm
kind of
willing.
grow your
I
platform?
We need to reach as many aware, like-minded people as possible, especially those who are devoted and serious about building communities or who already have them. This is the target here. Do you approve?
Yeah, I think people should be building more communities, but
Okay, good.
also it's
So
not any old random community that I think needs to be built. I think it's a certain kind. So, like I said, I don't necessarily.
not one big. No, no, no. I never wanted to build my own community. I stating that clearly in my videos. I never want to build my own community. I will join one community later, which I will see suitable for myself. But right now, we need to find those communities, assemble them in a one database, informations about them, so we know how many of us there is, how many people we may rely on, how many interested are to cooperate with other communities, and build something bigger together in form of a cooperation network and possible economic block. That's my vision here for a start.
Yeah, I get it. Registering or indexing
Yes,
existing
exactly.
community, people who are interested in community on a common platform is fine. And like I created a profile on your site and I looked a little bit. I don't know how much activity total there is on the site. I don't know how big it will grow. Like I said, there are other technological solutions that people have come up with for a similar kind of problem. People do find each other in community in other ways. So, like, I'm happy to use your site as long as it is useful. But overall, for the reasons that I gave, I don't believe in an economic block of cooperation of like different worldviews because I don't think that's stable. I wouldn't put
Allow me
eggs
to
in that
mediate.
basket.
Allow me to
What?
mediate and organize that. I just need informations if we are even able to build that. This platform will tell me if we are able to do that. If I will have those informations, I will try to
Yeah.
mediate between all of you and put you all together into some type of a understanding. I'm sure I can do that. I'm
Well,
good really at that.
that's what I'm saying. I don't believe in. I don't think that you can get people with different worldviews, different beliefs together in a not
But you are
necessarily
willing to
platform,
try.
but a common. Well, when you say try, I was willing to have you on because I'm glad that you're trying to do something. I disagree with certain aspects of what you're trying to do. I think focusing on a particular worldview and particular people is going to be more productive than trying to like index a bunch of different approaches and strategies and kind of amalgamate them together into some hodgepodge strategy. I'd rather have a pure and like really integrated core. So that's what I believe in. I will like use a profile on your website as long as it is useful for finding people. I don't know how useful it seems like right now. The current platforms that I use are more efficient because I reach a lot more people with them. But I think the real problem though is that people don't care to form communities at the present. And so just giving them the way to communicate with each other is not solving that problem. The problem is one of motivation. The problem is one of like personal moral integrity and what people are willing to do to help the bigger situation on an individual level. I think people are not willing to do enough because they have moral failings. And giving them the right technological tool is not fixing that. The only way to fix that is to have an inspiring message that they really believe in. You have to
Eric, from
convert
my
people.
own
You have to
experiment.
convert people to believe in the importance of living a more virtuous life. That's what I am trying to do, even though that sounds a little lofty. Like that's what I believe is a way forward, is trying to
Eric,
convince people not with like, oh, we should all pragmatically cooperate, but no, at a deeper level, convert them about deep level truths about reality, about what is important for their soul. That's the level of question that I think actually makes a difference for people. Religion attests to that. People actually change their conduct on the basis of like a fundamental metaphysical conversion, but they don't really change their conduct when like someone offers a kind of pragmatic political solution. You can become a nationalist and still be a degenerate and still do a bunch of messed up stuff in your private life. In fact, that's kind of the norm, right? And a lot of people use this stuff online as a kind of parasocial like replacement for real life communities. What I'm looking to do is find a way to generate a call to action for a specific kind of solution, not a general pragmatic solution, but a specific kind of worldview, a specific kind of institution. And I want to invest all my energies in that. So that's where I'm coming from.
It is not conflicting anyhow with my plan anyhow. But Eric, I can tell you from my own observation and experience, the Christian community guy, which I know his name is Frank, he badly asking me to find people for his community. He lacks of workers and stuff like that. And from the other side, there are people are like, hey, Orel, I cannot afford land. Do you know any community which is recruiting or anything like that? Those people are out there. They just probably don't know where to search for what they're looking for. That's why the platform which you are on, that's why the platform which I made. But in order to make this platform efficient, that means we will have to inform people about this platform existence, and that's the other thing.
I don't have any problem with your platform existing. I probably won't be using it very much because it's not a lot of traffic. It's more efficient for me to just make the videos I'm making now and reach out to people in the ways that I'm reaching out now. But I'm happy to give you a voice and to have your opinion expressed on my channel. I think we talked about some good stuff. So no, we're not in conflict. I don't agree that ultimately a network of ideologically disparate communities will form any kind of meaningful block that'll make a difference. I think you need a network of parallel communities that are tightly integrated, not like kind of loosely confederated in a way that would allow them to back out with no cost to themselves
So
from
you
any
will have
alliance. Like it's just too loose. I think that's like one big problem.
Eric,
But as far as
it's not conflicting again, because you will have
uh-huh.
a group of very integrated, very close to each other communities, like let's say all Christian and or like yours, and they would be like happy to working with and being together and cooperating. And you will have some different communities, bit different, but you still guys will be able to get along on a common ground and cooperate on the economic field. If you guys are fine with that, I will be super happy. Just the economic ground. That's all I'm interested in.
Yeah, loose alliances, loose economic cooperation with different sorts of communities, I don't have a problem with. But then again, then it's like the same kind of as just engaging in the broader economic world at a certain level. So I do think there is a fundamental disagreement there about the prospects of a loose knit network of communities. I don't see the prospects there being real as a networking platform, a kind of social media site, and what you're wanting to do with it. I have no objection to what you're trying to do. So I was happy to give you this interview and have your voice expressed on my channel. So I think we can leave it at that. And good luck if anyone wants to sign up for his site. It's polmatch.com. So I'll put the link for that in the description. Thank you guys for listening. Have a good rest of your day.